Welcome, Bryte Church, to another devotional. Last time you heard from me, we were talking about hearing from God. And I want to speak to that one more time, but a little bit more in detail, because not only do we need to be in silence, but we get ideas, right? And we need to test whether those ideas are from God or not. It might be from the burrito you ate last night. I don't know, right? So we need to think about which impressions on our hearts are from God and which ones are not from God. When the devil gives you an idea, we call that a temptation. When God sends us ideas, we call that inspiration. And then when you get yourself an idea, we call that stupidity. No, I'm just kidding. But think about this. Just try to remember, why is it not good to rely on just the thoughts that you have? Try to remember a dumb idea that seemed right to you at the beginning, but then ended up being a dumb idea. Proverbs 14:12 says, "There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death." So what's wrong with the ideas that we have ourselves? A lot of times we can't see. We don't have enough foresight into the future to see how it's going to end up being. And so when we look at a filter of the things that we have to consider to make sure that the impression that we got from on our heart is actually from God, we need to be very confident. And so I'm going to give you 7 things that I heard from a different sermon that were really important to me. And if you look through these 7 things, you can be confident that God has spoken to you. The very first one, does it agree with the Bible? Does it agree with the Bible? Why is it important that I have to compare my idea that I got with that which is written in the Bible? Well, God is not going to contradict something that He's already said. He's very stable. He knows the future. If He said something and you got a new idea, you should confirm that with what He's already said. And if it's a different idea, He's not going to contradict Himself. Also, the point about looking into the Bible, I have yet to hear some kind of topic that is not covered in the Bible. Yes, there's some specific things like your situation specifically is not talked about in the Bible, but concepts and ideas and principles that you would be able to use in your life, most every single situation is covered. Number 2, does this make me more like Christ? Remember, character development for God's kingdom is the most important thing in our life. God gave us this time here, even after we've believed and become part of His family, to develop our character for His kingdom, to help those people around us, to be faithful to His church and to our families. And so, does this make me more like Christ or not? This idea that I have, this answer that I got. Number 3, does my church family confirm this idea? We're meant to live in a community. So if God's spoken to you and you share this with somebody else and they affirm this, yeah, you know what? I see this about you. You would be able to be good in this ministry, or you should do that, or different questions. Remember that the spirit that is inside of you as a Christian is the same spirit that is inside of somebody else that is also a Christian. And that spirit would confirm that which you have heard, or that which you understood, or the idea that you have in your heart. Now, what does it mean when you are trying to hide that which you think is a revelation from God, from your family, from other church members? That means you're not sure. That means you don't want to use this part of the filter. And that could be dangerous, because if you're hiding something that you think is from God, that doesn't make sense. God is a revealer, not a concealer, and He wants to bless. And so think about that. If you are hiding something, or if the idea that you got is something that you don't want to share with your family or with your friends, with church members. And the last part to this part of the filter, to confirm with your church family, can you imagine being a person next to somebody that doesn't have the Bible, doesn't have any biblical influence? You are incredibly valuable to that person. Do you realize that that person is making decisions just based off things that he or she will get on top from the top of his head? That person might be influenced in bad ways, and the devil might send temptation after temptation that the person might act on. And you, being the person that has some biblical stability, would be able to be just invaluable to that person. So think about being that person for somebody in the church family. Number 4, is it consistent with how God shaped me? We did a series called SHAPE. S stands for spiritual gifts, H stands for heart's passions, A stands for abilities, P stands for personality, and E stands for experiences, life experiences. And everybody is given a God-given shape. And if that which you are being pulled to, or the idea that you got, is not consistent with your shape, then you should reconsider. That's another filter to go through. Number 5, does the impression I got from God concern my responsibility? Sometimes what we asked of God, we try to ask for somebody else. A lot of times, most of the time, that doesn't make sense. If that person is another believer, God can just talk to that person directly. Why does God have to talk to me first and then send me to that person? When God can speak directly to that other Christian by the Spirit that's within him or her. So don't try to play the Holy Spirit for somebody else. You need to be responsible for that which pertains to you. So you should ask, is this something that pertains to me and to my responsibility and my standing before God or not? Number 6, is it convicting rather than condemning? There's that difference. One is from Satan and the other one's from God. Conviction exposes what is wrong, right? You need to change this. That's what the bottom line is. You need to change this. That's a conviction that you can experience. Whereas condemnation attacks your value. You're worthless. And that's what Satan wants to think. And so when you get this idea that's negative, and if it's a condemning idea, if it's an idea that when you experience condemnation, that would be from Satan. That's not from God. Number 7, do I sense God's peace about it? 1 Corinthians 14:33 says, "For God is not a God of confusion, but a God of peace." So there's these 7 filters. I want to read them through one more time. Just the questions. Does it agree with the Bible? Does this make me more like Christ? Does my church family confirm this idea? Is it consistent with how God shaped me? Does the impression that I get involve my responsibility? Is it convicting rather than condemning? And number 7, do I sense God's peace about it? Now, stop for a moment and think about it. Do you need all 7? Maybe you can just use a couple of these filters and that would be enough. Or maybe just one. And I want to reaffirm this, that you need all 7. If you go through all 7 of these, and all 7 ended up being positive, that means, think about this, you just heard from God, the creator of your soul, and you have confirmed this and you understood what he's saying because you got other church members, your family involved. You're open about it. It matches your shape. You feel peace about this. There's confirmation in the Bible. It pertains to your responsibility. I mean, think about this. Go through these 7 and you can be sure that it's God speaking to you and not just that you're burrito or Satan or whatever, right? That is an amazing thing to think about, that you can confirm for yourself through a filter that this is exactly what God is talking or what God is telling you. So I encourage you, aside from being silent before God, when you do get an idea, when you get a heart's impression about something that you need to say or do, or a ministry to start, or maybe if it's a negative thought, go through this filter and consider, is this God talking to you? Or are you making these things up? Or are they satanic thoughts? This is very important that we stop and think about that, because if we do not, what are our decisions based on? Just feelings? Just other people's opinions? Our Creator, the Creator of your soul, wants to talk to you, and He is. The only question is, are we listening in silence? And are we confirming that which we are, that idea that we're getting is from Him or not? Be blessed.